Pickers Market, episode 54. Big day today. New voice introducing here, or seldomly heard. I'm Keith, by the way, so it's very big day. We have Tyler joining us, Lisa. Another reason a big day, we have a new portfolio manager here. Let's welcome Kyle Bergacker.
Thank you.
Kyle, why don't you introduce yourself a little bit and kind of tell us about your history?
There we go. There it is.
Yeah, about time, Tyler.
Jeez, a little slow on that one. Sorry.
Kyle, we just started your day 3. Yesterday we threw you to the wolves. We actually put you on video on day 2, which is crazy. Did awesome. Right. Today we're doing a podcast, so we'll introduce you to the podcast world, and just be aware of, Lisa's our I would call her our executive producer / bully down here in our podcast room. So what do you think about that, Tyler? Do you think that's true?
What did you do yesterday for video?
What did I do?
You recorded the G40i. It was awesome. Just kind of
and the endowment
series. Just kind of put them on there to see how we could do. And
how'd it go?
Not as good as Lisa.
Lisa was down there, a rock star.
One take?
You're too nice. Let's say so, yeah.
Let's say so.
So Kyle, Lisa was fantastic. Kyle, you've been doing this for about 15 years, right? You want to give us a little rundown, a quick of your little history and kind of where you came from and kind of your experience. And another nice thing about Kyle is he actually has, Binger and I's pedigree of coming from Thrivent.
That's right.
Plus, he was on the advisory side, which again should be fantastic for our clients and advisors that we work with.
Right. So started in advisory practice in 2008 at Thrivent Financial. So
perfect timing.
Where's a clap, Tyler?
Great timing.
Great timing.
So I had the good opportunity to be lucky at that point in time. Everybody, as their portfolios were cutting in half, no advisors were calling those clients, and so that allowed me to get in there and build a very strong practice. 2011, I exited that business and wanted to do more of the institutional money management, and so went over to Columbia Management Investment Advisors, which is housed under the Ameriprise umbrella.
Yeah, and that's a big shop.
It's a big shop. Yeah. So I was part of a domestic value team running 5 mutual funds. There were 4 kind of value oriented ones, and then there was a extension fund, which was really popular prior to the financial crisis. So it was a 120/20 fund. And then our team got lifted out and went over to Oppenheimer Funds and had the good choice of either going to New York and living there or in Denver. And Denver was a hard choice to make. So
yeah, glad you went to Denver. You picked that. That was a good choice.
Right. 300 days of sun. It's easy to use and low taxes. So so lived there and
then back to Minnesota.
Back to Minnesota. Yeah. So 2017, my wife and I welcomed a child into the world, and family was calling, so back to Minneapolis.
Awesome. You kind of like Tyler's neighborhood. You kind of went to, I think, University of Minnesota as well, right?
Just same program,
same exact degree.
Two boys at home.
Two boys at home, right?
College of Agriculture. Who would have thought?
Who would have thought?
I know.
Lisa, is that your degree? College of?
No,
not your degree. All right. Well, welcome to the show. So we're excited to have you here, and you got a great experience, and our advisors are going to love to hear from you, and we're getting you on board right away here. Now, today we'll go back to the old, what Lisa started not too long ago. I'll tell you 3 facts. 2 will be truths. 1 will be lie. Did anybody cheat, Tyler?
I
did not.
I don't even look at these
cheat
sheets ahead of time.
Lisa, do you look at these?
Oh, well,
do you do any prep work?
Prepared. That's what he wanted to say.
You can take it like that.
I think I did too.
I'm just going off the top of my head of whatever my current thoughts are for the day.
Lack of preparation. We'll make that note, Lisa. All right. Let's start with 2 truths and a lie. First one, we're doing number 54 because episode 54. Mm-hmm. So 54 is the number of colored squares on a Rubik's Cube. That's A. B, the number 54 is the football jersey number of Scott Studwell, who played for the Minnesota Vikings. C, Studio 54 was a famous nightclub in Manhattan. Who wants to start?
I think I know this one.
Should we let the new guy start, or if he knows, if he's confident, maybe we should have Lisa start.
This is titled "New Guy."
Maybe Kyle should start. He's so confident. We get some ideas from him.
Yeah, Kyle, what do you got here? Let's run them down.
I feel like Rubik's Cube 9 times 6, 54. That's got to be true, right? Studio 54 in Manhattan. I feel like that was a place. So B is probably the lie.
Okay. Lisa, what do you got anything to add to that?
I reasoned it similar. I think Studio 54, I don't know, maybe it was 53, the famous nightclub. I don't know, maybe it was another number.
That wasn't over in
sound,
Austria, Studio 54
no,
or
not that
53?
I know of,
Okay.
but it sounds like it could be
Rolls off
something
the tongue.
real.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. Yeah. 54
Poor
with the
Keith just
Rubik
made a
Cube.
new nightclub.
Yeah.
That makes sense. New nightclub in Elk River.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, yeah. Studio 1.
Studio 1. I would say B as well. It's kind of odd. I don't even know if there are 54 jerseys for football players. That's the
There you go.
non-sport person
Yeah.
speaking. I have no idea, but it sounds a little bit out of the place. So
There are numbers above 54.
Oh,
just so you
really?
know, in
Okay,
football.
good. No,
All right.
that's the.
We got
yeah.
that settled
Yeah.
at least.
Okay.
Tyler?
Yeah. I mean, 4 sides to a square
Mm.
plus front and back. So 6 times 9, you get 54.
Love the 2 math guys on here. And
Right.
That's
Studios
awesome.
54 sound like just in your head. It just
Mhm.
sounds
good. Yeah.
Sounds
Mhm.
good. And I feel like you're trying to be tricky, and maybe Scott Studwell was like jersey 45 or like
Oh.
53,
Yeah.
just like something like that.
Yeah.
So I'm going with B.
You guys all nailed it. Studwell was
Mhm.
55, by the way.
Ah,
So.
See,
yeah.
That's
Kyle,
close.
you're a little you're a lot closer to Tyler's age than mine, but did you remember Scott Studwell? No,
I know
he-
the name.
Yeah, he was a linebacker.
Mhm.
55 was his number.
Doesn't
I actually
even
have
ring
his
a bell.
jersey. I have his jersey at home. That's
Do you really?
yeah.
We better wear it.
I should have worn on the show,
Yeah,
right?
that would've
And
been-
that would have been
funny.
given away.
That
would've been
See how observant we are.
Yeah, no, and Rubik's Cube. I thought that was good. You guys did the math on that. By the way, has anybody have you guys? Can you do Rubik's cubes?
YouTube
Kyle?
video,
Okay,
right?
Yeah.
There's like a method.
my
to
son
the
can do them
madness.
like in
Yeah, method.
30
to the-
seconds, a
right, yeah.
minute. He's one of those. We got him growing up, all these different shapes, and he would just zip through them. And I don't know if it's the videos or what, but I can't do one. I used to, when I was a kid and get them, I'd pull them apart, put them back together. That's how I did it. So, all right, let's get to the fun stuff here. Wait, what? We're going to talk about earnings. We're in Q1 earnings season. So far, I think it's gone a little better than expected. Do you guys kind of want to weigh in? Kind of what's your general thoughts? We'll start with you, Tyler, and kind of how we're about 2/3 of the way through earnings season right now. By end of the week, we should be almost 3/4 of the way through.
I think it's been a lot better than people are expecting. I know that if you compare it to historicals, it's probably not as great, but when you consider the overhang of tariffs, and we heard, I think an interesting one was Ford, who actually did have to suspend guidance.
Yep.
So, I mean, you have direct issues for these guys, for some of these companies that are facing the tariffs, but generally speaking, the broader companies aren't necessarily pulling guidance like we thought they might. Some companies are even raising guidance, like we got Disney this morning raising their earnings estimates, building a new theme park in, I think it's Abu Dhabi,
Mhm.
right?
Oh, but I think you and Kyle can talk about that. There's another
Yes.
fun fact about Kyle is he's what kind of fan are you?
Formula One fan, right?
Yes.
So
Yes.
Yas Marina, they're building.
Oh, is that where it is?
Mhm.
There we go.
So
Mhm.
that's the
We'll
tie into
we'll have to take a trip over there,
Right.
hit the Disney park, and watch a Formula One race.
Right.
Boy.
I researched for him.
Yeah,
Lisa.
exactly. So I think generally speaking, earnings season has been better than I would say feared.
Yeah,
in my opinion.
yeah.
Mhm.
Lisa, thoughts?
I think so too. I think there was a lot of concern out there what companies might say around tariffs, which they don't know more about tariffs than anyone else, right? But I think investors were like envy to get some data points on that. And I think in addition to that, because there's still so much uncertainty, it was like, is the AI play still fine and healthy? Or are we struggling there as well with CapEx spending, AI spend, our other Max 7 struggling? That would be bad in addition to all the policy uncertainty, which was absolutely not the case. Which I think it was very positive that at least one worry is gone for now.
Mm-hmm. Kyle, you got to weigh in on some of the. I know it's day 3 now, but
Yeah, no,
you're up and running.
Yeah, no,
Don't make any too much bold calls here.
I think just a continuation of some of the strength that we had been seeing in the industrials, more the cyclicals spaces for sure. Rockwell Automation reported this morning it's up 10% pre-market or something like that. Substantially better than feared. Tariffs passing through costs. Seems like a lot of the supply chain reorganization across the industrial base has been underway, and this is not a new thing for them. They've seen this kind of play out during Trump term 1 at the end there. So I think things are kind of moving along in an orderly fashion with pockets of green shoots. So I think it's setting up for an interesting second half to the year for sure.
Yeah, no, I agree with you guys' sentiment. I was more cautious, especially on the guidance going forward. I
Yeah.
figured a lot of companies would be pulling guidance, but that hasn't been the
Mhm.
case, which
Well,
is
here's my question to you on that. Do you think it's because we're at the 10% tariff rate with the 90-day pause, or like if we didn't have this 90-day pause, do you think more companies would have suspended guidance?
yeah, I don't know. 10% still pretty
Mhm.
Still a
significant,
lot,
right?
yeah.
I mean, so I think they've either incorporated now with their guidance or some of the
Mhm.
guidance is wider. But I was fearful going in, if you back it up before the announcement, was that companies wouldn't guide at all. And all of a sudden you're like, generally speaking, how it works is when companies guide, sell side analysts just basically take the midpoint of that guidance, we throw it in our systems, and that's kind of how the numbers that we look at consensus, that's how we look at where numbers should fall out. If there was no guidance, there would be numbers all over the
Yeah.
Mhm.
map, and then you have a lot more volatility, and then you have, when the companies report the following quarter, it'll be like a lot of more upside or downside because there wasn't a hand given number on consensus. So I think
Mhm.
that was a surprise to me. Again,
Mhm.
we're only not quite, we're two-thirds of the way through. That could change. Maybe the last third of the companies don't report, but I think Kyle's point was excellent on industrials. I think are way better than
Mhm.
expected, especially when they could be at the heart of the tariff issues. I worry on
Mhm.
the retail side of things. Those are the companies that are importing, especially like your Nikes of the world
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
Lululemons that are importing stuff from Vietnam and China itself. That those companies could give some really kind of scary or no guidance.
Mhm.
And it's been okay so far, which is good because I think the markets were really fearing that
Well,
numbers are come down.
that kind of goes back to it's like that standard Porter's 5, right? Dust off the college textbook, and it's like, okay, like your ability to be able to pass through some of those costs to your customers, and how significant is your product? Robotics with the CHIPS Act and infrastructure bill and all this stuff, like the new TSMC plant going into Arizona. That is a significantly different application, and the ability to pass through those costs to your consumers relative to, say, a pair of Nikes,
Yep.
right? So it is interesting watching the different strategies. So
Would you think then quarter 2 and quarter 3 will be a little bit more severe, or at least a little bit more clear when we see like policy? A lot will get done until then. I mean, we are in the 10% base tariff line, 45% still for China. But then we have the pause basically coming to an end.
Off, yeah.
We haven't heard about major trade deals yet. There are rumors there that their trade deals has been struck, but we haven't heard anything. So, and then the quarter 2 and quarter 3 will be the first full quarter where companies had to deal with the 145 for China and the 10% generally. What do you think? We get a little bit more
I'm still in the
negative surprises there.
maybe, but I'm still in the camp of, again, we're I think almost about a month into this 90-day delay. I still think I'm falling into the camp of the art of the deal. So I think more deals will happen very soon. And the other thing is that 90 days, that could be extended, right? That 90 days could be another 90 days. If we say, oh, we're making progress, we have, 10 countries we've signed up or some kind of agreement, right? That now we'll just keep pushing that out and then keep signing. So then maybe that won't have such volatility on the earnings on the companies. So that'd be my takeaway on that.
Or you may let it go back into place for a day or two,
scare
and
some.
then try and have the upper hand in the negotiation tactic and pull it back again for 90 days or something like that. I mean,
yeah, that could be.
I just don't think we can go back to the I don't want to talk about tariffs too much
No,
because
I know.
we've beat it over the head at this point. But I don't think we go back to the Liberation Day tariffs. I don't think we can handle it.
No, I don't think so either. That's why I think that was the worst point, and I think we covered it enough. But I think it's going to be a lot less going forward, and it's just a matter of the timing of those deals getting done. So,
and the other part is companies have front loaded their imports of what inventories have skyrocketed. Right, we saw that in the imports and private inventories in GDP first for the preliminary numbers. So, I mean, you're probably gonna have lesser impact in the coming quarters, not as much as you might expect, just because they've been able to front run that a little bit.
Speaking of earnings, we've seen most of the Meg 7 report. I guess general thoughts on better or worse? Any surprises?
AI is strong.
That's what surprised me. I
Mhm.
think the CapEx increase, which
Yeah.
we had this debate maybe a couple months ago. I think Tyler was actually spot on saying, what would CapEx, as we go through this year, would happen for the big guys? I was more stay steady or potentially start cutting.
Mhm.
That hasn't happened. They've
No,
actually increased.
They're raising
so.
it. Yeah. Well, and I think part of the raise in CapEx is, to Kyle's point, of they're having costs come through. So they
Mhm.
probably, to keep their baseline the same,
Mhm.
they probably have to raise their CapEx budgets for AI, just because the chips are going to be
More expensive.
more expensive,
Right.
or certain, obviously the chips right now are exempt, but at some point parts of the entire ecosystem are going to be increased in prices, and those are
Mhm.
going to be full. These guys know that those prices are going to be fully passed through to them because they can afford to do it. It's the
Yeah.
consumer items that may not have the
Mhm.
full pass through effect.
Lisa, any thoughts on the Meg 7, or do you got any other companies that were big surprises, big kind of positive or negative?
No, I think overall it was good. I mean, like you said, Meg 7, I think overall very positive, except Tesla. I think we can scrap Tesla out of that discussion here. I think overall United Health was a big negative surprise.
That was
Mhm.
unfortunately, I felt
They
that
had
one.
like a miss with what they normally do not have.
Yeah, they haven't had a
then
miss in
they-
over 10
yeah,
years.
they put guidance lower. I think they had the worst day as a reaction. Their stock, I think, since the late 90s,
Mhm.
which was like a big impact, which I think is a little bit overdone maybe as well. So, and Netflix
Yeah.
was absolutely positive. I think that
Yeah.
was at some point because it was one of the earlier tech companies reporting. That was one of the only green spots at some point. No, very positive overall. I think with Netflix, there was a positive management commentary that they're a little bit more isolated from tariffs.
Yeah, we like that, don't we?
Right. And then if consumers have to pull back, Netflix is probably not the first subscription.
Although maybe
on
not
the chopping
anymore.
block. Right. That's what I wanted to
With
mention with the movie tariffs that
movie
Trump.
tariffs.
Yeah, that was a new
Mhm.
one that kind of surprised.
I think no one saw that coming.
No, we'll see what that actually happens
Yeah,
there.
right.
But yeah, there's always something in the tariff land. Kyle, any thoughts on any big surprise? You mentioned a couple right this morning, Disney and Rockwell. I think were
Yeah, I think
pleasant
for
surprises.
I think for me, just this year, or maybe it's even the last couple of years, just the trend of outsized volatility is something that really is
Mhm.
surprising to me. UNH is a
Mhm.
really great example of that, where the stock drafts down, 20+%. Other names earlier this year that saw the same thing would be like those high quality compounders that just don't miss. And then when they do stumble, it's like Huntington Ingalls, the builder of the aircraft
Yep.
carriers for the US. It's kind of like a bond. It's free cash flow,
Yep.
consistency, and then all of a sudden you miss and it just drafts down, in one day and it's over. So it is interesting seeing the volatility in some of these names that are those steady Eddie compounders, because the moves don't justify the actual underlying fundamentals.
Yeah.
So it is interesting to, put on your contrarian hat and say, like if I'm a long-term investor, is this actually a unique opportunity, or is there a structurally, is this a different story now than it was before?
That's
Yeah,
definitely
excellent point.
interesting. I mean, we saw that, like you said, over the last couple of months for sure, last
Right.
couple of quarters, last couple of years, that companies who miss get punished way harder
Right.
than in history, and companies who beat are just not as
Much upside. Is
Right.
not as much upside as history suggests, which is very interesting.
Right.
Well, your
developments.
valuations are a lot higher
That's-
than
yeah.
where they've been
Yeah.
at. So even if they beat, they've already been generally priced, what I would say priced for perfection.
Mhm.
So if they
Mhm.
beat, it's like, okay, status quo.
Mhm.
But now if they miss, it's like, all right, well, we need to
Yeah.
re-rate this thing maybe
Panic.
2-3
Mhm.
turns lower.
Mhm.
Even if your EPS doesn't change all that much, maybe it comes down on guidance like 5-6%, but the 2 to 3 turns on valuation brings you down
Mhm.
10 to 15%.
Mhm.
So that, I think that's the biggest issue right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're starting to see some of that normalize a little bit, but
Yeah, now we went down to like 19. I think we're
Yeah.
back almost up to 20 with the market,
Of
which
course.
is, again, the market moves quickly.
Yeah.
And that's why we always say, stay invested. Don't be
Mhm.
panicking. That's the worst thing. You can, you get these
Mhm.
big volatile moves, right? And if you're
Right.
panicking on the bottom, you could
Yeah.
miss a 10% rally. The other last point of earnings kind of I thought was interesting is the comments of recession
Mhm.
in a lot of the transcripts now. I thought was
Mhm.
interesting because I think it was what, 20, I think we have 360-ish companies of the 500 reporting. 24% of those companies mentioned the word recession. That surprised me. And if you go back just last quarter, it was 2%. So that's certainly on the minds. You guys have any thoughts on kind of recession? And plus, on top of that, in the last couple of weeks, we saw a negative GDP number of minus, I think it was minus 0.4 or minus 0.3.
Minus 0.3.
Usually, typically, 2 quarters of negative GDP is considered a recession. So
I'm not all worried about the GDP thing. I
I'm
mean,
not either.
there was a minus 5% headwind from front-running
Inventories,
tariffs. So
yeah.
your net exports was minus 5% headwind on GDP. So not too worried about that. But as far as recession, I think part of it too is once you get one company talking about it in a specific industry. I mean, some specific industry, we've seen real estate have issues since COVID, right? They've been in basically a recession since COVID or 2021. But once you have one person start to comment on it, it's kind of an easy way out for some of these companies to maybe lessen the blow of maybe lowering guidance for the year, so that they don't maybe get smacked as hard as they might have if we weren't expecting recession.
Mhm.
And you've seen the odds of recession come up, like the poly market. I think last I saw was at 59% odds of recession. 45% of economists are at recession areas. So I think it's just in the forefront. And so companies may be using that to potentially lower their guidance on what would have been a normally weak number for them.
Fair. Lisa?
I think that there's a point to it. Like Tyler said, if one starts, then it kind of compounds, and then we hear it more. And then we heard economists talking about recession for the last 3 years, with
That's
nearly
very,
at some
very
point
good point.
nearly 100%
That will hit
that
one.
we will have one.
Mhm.
It did not materialize with the inverted yield
Hey,
curve,
you just
which
keep calling
is
for
like,
one.
Yeah.
Eventually, you're going to be right.
eventually, if you do it long enough,
Broken
eventually
clock,
you're right? So I think overall the economy is still in a very healthy and resilient situation right now. And I think the reason why all those recession talks came back was it's a house-made thing, basically. It's nothing that is broken. I think it's like all the policy talks,
Mhm.
which can change overnight, can change with a tweet.
We've seen that.
So yeah, we've seen that, and the market reacts to it. So I think we have to be a little bit careful here, and it can be taken down quite fast as well.
Yeah.
Again, if the longer the uncertainty stays, the more impact we will have, even though it does not go into effect, because it will have a negative impact. But overall, I think it's still healthy backdrop. Overall, yeah.
Kyle, got anything to add on the recessions and what you're hearing?
I think recession is kind of a funny concept, because it's almost like an all or nothing binary, right?
Mhm. Yeah, you
But-
think you're in it, like, oh no.
Right. But I mean, going back a decade, you had the industrial recession in 2014 that lasted 2 years.
Yeah.
And since COVID, the last 8 quarters, we've seen industrials and other cyclicals, materials, energy, also in that space where it's been very, very poor numbers on the industrial side, where it's been recession-like. And now you see with the tariffs, with some of this other kind of economic uncertainty, the labor market is, if you look at U6 unemployment, which is people who are out of the workforce and have stopped looking, they've been out for a long time. Those numbers are, as high as they've ever been, more or less. So I would agree with Lisa, things in general are very strong. It's, there's not a lot of worry, but, depending on how you're investing, what that landscape looks like, I think it creates some opportunity now to be able to, if you're a patient investor, to be able to have some dry powder to think about what the next couple quarters look like, to be able to deploy capital that way.
Yeah, I agree. And to Tyler's point, it's this GDP number that we saw was negative, and then also you worry about the next quarter if it's going to be negative. I think this was more of a one-off on inventory situation. I do think we're very healthy. Unemployment's low at 4.2. GDP, I think, will probably snap back. So I saw Goldman note the other day is now they're forecasting like a 2.5 number for next quarter, which is a big jump up, right? Because they were one of the first on the sell side, kind of waving the potential recession, taking numbers down, and now they've kind of reversed it again. So it's a very fluid situation. So it's something we'll keep an eye on, and we'll certainly talk about here on the show. So let's jump to something. We'll do the spaghetti wall. We'll try to keep us on schedule here. We'll do the spaghetti wall, and since it's Mother's Day weekend coming up here in Minnesota, one thing that I've noticed this last week, we're starting to see green, right? Not just in the stock market, but actually outside, which is nice. The dreary winter's gone, brown's gone, and just in the last couple of days, it's crazy how the leaves have changed. So when you guys hit Mother's Day weekend here, what do you guys kind of think about spring? Is it times? What do you guys have planned, or some activities that springtime brings for you? Tyler, I know you got stuff going on. You got a new house. I imagine you got to do a little work.
Yeah, we got yard work. My grass was perfectly green by this time last year, and this year it's not. So just
I heard your wife's not too happy about
yes.
that.
Well, the problem is so last summer my neighbor, he was gone for a month in July, August.
I hope he's not listening.
I don't think so. Grass completely died, Didn't water his yard once last year. And this year it is literally plush green already. I'm like,
just making
I'm trying to take care of my, it's just,
he's going to be over there in the middle of the night with salt.
Yeah, for sure.
See, Steph, I don't know what we're looking at his yard's terrible.
But the problem is we've been working on our basement, trying to finish it. And so I think drywall's going up next week. So now it's going to be, and we're hiring that out, but I'm going to be doing the painting, all the baseboards. So when it's nice outside, I'm going to be downstairs in the basement painting and putting baseboards on. So
that's not good.
Yeah.
Lisa, how about you? Is it you and Mr.
I do not have a good neighbor fight, unfortunately.
No?
Offer here.
That's good. Well, you're too
Good
friendly for
grass
that.
neighbor
Yeah.
fight, No. No, but it's good that it's finally green. I mean, we see that in other parts of the US, all short sleeved already for weeks. Everything like cherry tree blossoms, whatever. And in Minnesota, it's like, well, I do not see one green thing yet. So it kind of it's good for.
Mr. Dominic, and you have any big camping trips? Now the weather's getting nice out, and I know let's hear about his little camper.
Not quite yet. I mean, he did like a test trip, which went well, which was good.
Lisa's our resident outdoor expert now. All of a sudden, she's gone from coming from Austria to here, and her husband now has a truck with
sleeping in a truck bed.
Sleeping in the back of it.
That's what I always dreamed of, right?
She's gone from hostels to sleeping in the back of a truck.
Yeah. What you do for love, right?
Exactly. It's crazy, isn't it?
It is.
I don't know. So did you have any big plans coming up in spring or early summer?
Not yet.
Not yet?
So we probably do some shorter trips.
Okay.
Maybe with the plane or whatever.
Well, kind of. You're going back to Austria for a couple weeks.
Yeah.
In May.
That's in 3 weeks.
Who's going to run the show, Tyler, when our executive producer's gone?
I don't know. It'll
Maybe
be a lot
Kyle
more friendly
will do it.
around here. That's for sure.
Oh,
wow. Woo, you can wait until I'm gone to say that. At least.
That's just, oh my word. We have some issues going on today.
It's a hostile environment here.
Kyle, how about you? I mean, have you been in your house for a while? You don't have as much yard work as
we've been there for 8 years, but like Tyler, I also have the same yard problems. So we did mulch last weekend, and I had a literal dump truck with 20 yards of mulch come. So I was out there with a pitchfork and a wheelbarrow.
Wow.
It was
that's a lot of work.
The two guys coming out of the agriculture school can't figure out their yards.
What's going on here?
Might need a refund.
Right.
Call the University of Minnesota and ask what's going on with that program.
Right.
You do not talk home ownership up that much. Like, I don't know, when I listen to you guys,
Lisa was interested in buying a house.
Yeah.
Now she's like,
it's just
I got to worry about my neighbor's yard. I got to worry about my own yard.
It's an inflation hedge.
Yeah.
Yeah, you got that going for you if you do it. And plus, you're we were talking yesterday. You're a up north cabin guy, right? So true Minnesotan. So you make that trek almost every week. Is that true?
Yep. Yeah. So we've got a place in just north of Nisswa, and we're on a lake, and we're the stewards of the loons on our lake.
Oh,
that's the Minnesota
fantastic.
State bird, and we put out the platform, and we've got a little camera on there, so we telegraph that for people on the lake to enjoy.
No, you showed me yesterday. That was really cool.
Yeah,
I actually see the loons walking up into the.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's
neat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Resident loon expert we have with us.
Resident loon
I guess
expert.
So we're learning a little bit about the new guy
Right.
every day, right? So that's awesome. So
What are you doing?
Not much. Same as you guys. Yard work. This
Is
and
the
that.
boat in the water?
The boat's in the water. Yeah, it's all good. We had a bunch of geese on our shore, which I don't like. So I usually try to put some string and things to keep the geese away and get the dog to chase them off the property. But no, it's springtime. I have a son that's a senior, so my wife's got me busy working on projects around the house for the grad party, which people come and go in an hour, but it seems like it's a big focus for people when they have a graduating person. So kind of scratch my head on that, but no, it's all good. I just appreciate the warm weather. It's fantastic. So it's nice to start warming up and see the green. I am a big summer guy, so we're getting closer to summer. Well, the weather here, I think we're supposed to be in the 80s, so we're almost
next week is all
almost
80s.
skipping through spring right into summer. So,
but it's interesting how fast it got green.
That's what I mean. It's literally a couple days.
That's crazy.
Yeah. It's good. So we like it. Green, just like the market. So on that note, I think we'll call it a good show. We got Kyle. Welcome. You're doing an awesome job. So look at that. I don't think Binger's even got 3 applauses.
Yeah.
So that's good. So if you like this show, keep listening and like and subscribe. See you next week.